right, what's the brother? How do I say the brother's name? Your older brother's name, Jariah?
Cobb.
How you doing, brother?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, I see you. Hey, it is Yohanada.
God, shalom to you.
I was the old man Yohanada then.
Blessed in Christ, man.
is it wearing you down now, or are you getting rejuvenated, brother?
I'm always rejuvenated, man. I'm good.
All right, that's the news. That's what it's supposed to be doing.
All praises.
It's supposed to be rejuvenate you in the spirit, wearing you down in the flesh.
God.
Can y'all scoop this out a little bit?
No, you need what to wear.
Yeah, so you see more buzz in the camera, bro.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it gotta be more buzz. Yeah, see more buzz. Okay, shine moving the camera.
Yeah, that's tight. So
be it, bro. What else is it? See on the TV.
And Yeshaya got a VIP pass on this shit. What's up with that, Yeshaya?
VIP? What?
You know how they be wearing the VIP necklaces? That's what the thing look like here from.
Oh, yeah.
Ah.
Yes,
okay, listen. Like I said, you guys, is the reason why I have for the most part just the Q&A, because it's a more practical approach to our dynamic now. You know what I mean? As opposed to establishing a topic or a theme and then having to wait, anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks, so that on the final Friday, you know what I mean, of every month, then we pick it up. So we're not going to do that. So are there any questions or even topics or themes? I see your brother shot his hand up like a gunfighter. Marwala, to make sure that he went first. What you got, brother?
Yeah,
hold up on this damn cat.
Imagine.
Go ahead, what's your question, brother? Any comment?
Yeah, this question I've been having for like a long time. I never got to ask or anything like that. But I wanted to know how did Esau convert to being Japhet, Gomer, Magog, and Javan?
Well, listen, that's a good question. You said how he converted to what?
Yeah, like how did Esau integrated of being being into like the Japhites, like Javan?
Let me say this out. See, that's not what happened. What happened is Esau's not the Japhite, the Japhetic people.
God.
Yeah, he's not. But remember, when we deal with, do me a favor, Zaria, can you do that? Can you put a map up of the old world? Hey, Shalom, Mama Yetzizah.
That's the man right there.
The reason why I say that is so that you can see the people assume that when you read the scriptures, that Esau is Japhet because they look at the map and they see those territories. Those territories are the old settlements after the flood. But the Most High have prophecies that deal with the last days. And so the last days, the Most High is using, hold on real quick, Yeshaya. Y'all hear this fucking cat? Yeshaya. Okay. Come here. I have a satanic cat, man. Literally, he don't do nothing. I want you to heard him. What cat does that? What cat does... Anyway. So like I was saying, brother, I don't know if anyone can do that. Get the map up. The point is, the prophecies are telling us... Let me see if I can find one. Let's just do this. Because I want to make it clear to you by using a map.
Can't understand.
Okay, so this, like you said, put a map up of a dog. This is how cold. This is how cold the scriptures and the Most High's planning is. So when you look at a map of the old world, let's say the territories of Japheth, it's not talking about Esau. But how can I put it? The maps are telling us those 3 dark-skinned sons of Noah, their father being a dark-skinned man, where did they all settle? And then the Most High, knowing how he was going to move everybody around. When I say move everybody around, for instance, how did Esau come to occupy? He didn't become Japheth. What he did was he came to occupy those Japhetic territories through what? Through conquest. Okay. Thank you, do me a favor, man, and make it down to, let's go to Japheth. That whole, it's Europe for the most part, Europe and Asia Minor. Right there. And center that. Okay, stop right there. Now, all of that is for the most part Asia Minor, and basically the Greek world. When you say, look at the JA to the left, that's for the most part where the Greek world starts, right? Where it says Thrace and all of that. So those areas, the whole world was black, right? And what happened is Esau conquered those territories. He's never become Japheth. He conquered the territories. And I'm going to use what took place in the Americas, right, to help you understand that. So today, you living in Texas, we got brothers, whatever state they're living in, and the people are called Americans. And when you say American, for the most part, if you're in your right mind, you associate that with the Edomite descendants of all the European immigrants. So before any Edomite or any European came to the Americas, it was an all what people like to call indigenous inhabited land. We're not now. Why am I saying that with respect to this map? Because it's the same thing. You come to the Americas, all the people with different shades of brown, dark skin, what Esau would eventually call them Indians. Then he would come over and begin first conquer and colonize. And so you had French settlements, you had British settlements, you had Spanish settlements. I'm just dealing with North America. Now, those people that were inhabiting the place got sifted out. They got thrown out. They got conquered, genocide. Remember, there was Deuteronomy, that was punishment. Well, before it ever happened in America, it also happened in Europe. So all of those dark people, with time, and let me say this, and the people becoming, let's say, Europe becoming white, really did not begin until the conquest of Alexander. And Alexander moved from where you see, look at the J on the map. All right. Now, when you go all the way down to the portion of that kind of broken up territory, at the very bottom, it says Athens. Above Athens, it says Greece. All right, and then I wish I could find a section that would say Macedonia. The point is, this is where the Edomite world began. The question is, how did they get there? They got there through being carried there and conquered themselves by dark nations. The people don't know that. The nations back then were conquering each other and relocating people out of their territories. All right? So Esau would eventually emerge as the Greeks and move westward. That's Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7, specifically Daniel chapter 8, tells you about the ram, or I should say the goat with a notable horn between his eyes, and that he would come and move westward. All it is history out. So I'm trying to show you, they're occupying, just like Europe came over and occupied America, and now it is associated with what? With being a European or a white person's country. Like, for instance, the whole immigration thing. I'm using that just to help you understand that took place in those territories first. So they'll look at the immigrants, whether they're coming from the south, Mexico on farther down, The people looking for opportunity, looking for better living, right? They come up north, and Esau called them immigrants, but that wasn't always so. There used to be, the place was all so-called what, indigenous people. And so now through conquest, 500 years later, the place is associated with, number one, the first world and belonging to white people. But was it always like that? No. So that's how it happened in Europe. It's just you had conquering forces that came. The dark nations did it first. And, the Persians, they got of all the nations of the East, the Persians were maybe the Persians, I guess I could say actually the Turks, but the Turks are Edomites themselves. The Persian Median Empire were the ones that got all the way up into Turkey. And then they started entering into the Greek world. In other words, they were just spreading other dark seed. But then the Most High had Alexander and the Greeks. He raised them up, and then they moved westward. The Greeks didn't move eastward. The Greeks just moved westward. And so all of those nations, you would have to do a specific study on the dynamic of Alexander's kingdom. It's one of the reasons why he died at such a young age. Many people believe that he was poisoned by some of his generals because he was really pushing. He himself had a wife that was a Parthian. Parthia is the territory of Afghanistan today. He had a woman that was a Parthian and had a son by her. Then he had another wife that was a Macedonian. So when he died, you had people that was trying to. Alexander, before he died, was pushing many of his generals that they get women from Parthia and the nations that they were conquering. They weren't with that. Of course, they had concubines and they were their slaves, but they wasn't talking about. Alexander was really fusing the cultures. He was actually taken from Babylon and taken from all the nations, the Persians that he conquered, and then assimilating that into his world, into the Hellenic world. This was his vision. So, but what did they end up doing? They conquered people, and all of those soldiers and all of those masses of people would take the indigenous women of those territories. They wasn't bringing Greek women over with them in wars. And so you had a lot of those people that were doing what? That just was giving birth to Greek babies. The same would happen with the Romans. This is why the Arab world, for the most part, look like it does today. Like white people, they look like a mixture between what? They're like Greek and Roman people. Big ass noses, dark. A lot of them have blonde hair and blue eyes. So they're not the people of Europe. I should say the Japhetic territories. Esau didn't become Japheth. He just conquered their land. Now, with relation to the prophecy, when the Most High prophesies, for instance, one of the more prominent ones is Ezekiel 38. So I'm going to use Ezekiel 38 to help you, just to help answer this question. And yes, Ezekiel 38, and then also this is what we're going to do. We're going to get to Josephus as well. Get to Josephus. What happened is, a lot of times people be wanting to know, for the most part, that's a question that could easily be categorized in the realm of world history. And the Bible is not a book of world history per se. The Bible is a book of Israelite history as it pertains or as it integrates itself into the world. Now, what do I mean when I say that? In other words, the other nations come into the scope of the Bible as based on how the Most High used them to chastise Israel. The Bible is not about, so it contains prophecies concerning the trajectory that the Most High have the world on. But it's not about quote, it's about Israel.
God.
All the prophecies are to help us orient us through time. to help us get to what? To the day where Christ comes back and does what? And rescues and delivers and restores Israel. It's the whole book. But there's a trajectory that the Most High put us on that took us through what? Being conquered, downfall, having a downfall, first suffering a split because of our disobedience, and then the northern kingdom being taken. The only reason why Assyria is important is because Assyria took the northern kingdom into captivity. As after that, you don't get a whole lot on Assyria. The Most High prophesies against Assyria. But the book is so, for instance, let me just put it like this. So there's not going to be a whole lot of information on how things got to be the way they are. You see what I'm saying? The Most High is not going to take you, the scriptures don't take you on a trek through Esau's dynamic out of the land of Mount Seir, right? Out of the land of Mount Seir, or let's put it like this. Where did Esau begin? Esau began with us. He came out of his father's loins, Isaac, put into his mother's womb, Rebekah, born with his twin brother Jacob, born first, and he lived in the land of Canaan. Esau, the white people, Jesus couldn't have been white because, nigga, Jesus, if he was white, the white people were born right in the same place where we were, Canaan. The father of the white man came out of the same womb. So people they try to use the logic of Christ couldn't be white because the Middle East, and then they try. He was born right there with everybody else in the land of Canaan. That's the land of his nativity as well. Then what happened? The Most High, when Jacob left and went to Syria to live in Padanaram with his father-in-law, with his uncle that would become his father-in-law, Esau was still in the land of Canaan. But sometime over the 20-year period of Jacob's absence, Esau, the Most High tell you, he moved into Mount Seir, and the Most High had Esau dispossess the Horites and moved them out of Mount Seir, and Esau moved in. Now from there, the Most High the Bible don't follow the trajectory of what Esau went through that led in how he emerged in Greece. Because why? Because the book is not about Esau per se. It's about him in relation to what? To us. And then his importance doesn't become manifest until it's time to know who the devil is.
Okay.
So the Most High don't take you through his development like you can track ours. Because the book is not about him. Yes, he's the antagonist of this story. We are the protagonists, right? The good guy and the bad guy. Esau's the bad guy, but the Most High, because the book is about us, it's easier to follow our trajectory. And even that's broken, and we have to use the signs that the Most High gave you. That's why Deuteronomy chapter 28 is so important, because all it does is give us what? You can't go and find the trajectory of us either. But the Most High gives you signs to help what? Us identify. Oh, okay, this is the significance of the transatlantic slave trade. Deuteronomy 28. Oh, this is the significance of the conquest of the Americas. The so-called European discoveries and then subsequent conquest of the Americas. That's all Deuteronomy. But it ain't mapped out in detail. You understand what I'm saying now?
Okay.
But you have more about us. So on the exercise, do me a favor and read Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse 1, and then Daliah. You got let me get mine. Hold on, you go see this.
Book 1, chapter 6. Taking to the Jews, book 1, chapter 6.
Is that chapter 6 out?
Okay.
Where how Noah's sons were divided?
Okay. Book 1, chapter 6, Antiquities of the Jews.
Okay, that's where we're going to go. And you guys still have that, you guys are looking at the map, right?
Come.
Okay, we got it. We have Japheth centered on the thing. I'm here to read verse 1, please, of chapter 38 of Ezekiel.
Ezekiel 38 and verse 1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog.
Now stop right there so that you can understand. The Gog is the person. Gog is, I'm just going to refer to him as the head of state. The scriptures call him the prince, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. But Gog is the person, Magog is the land. People say Gog and Magog, but they don't understand. Now, where is Magog on the map? You see the Black Sea center, and then to the right you see the Caspian Sea. Just above, to the left of the Caspian Sea, you see the word Magog. Do you see that, my lord? Okay, that's the land that he's talking about. Now, in the time that we're reading of the Josephus, guess what? These people are black people. These are the sons of Noah. There is no Edomite, there's no so-called white person. Remember, we found out through, now I'm speaking of previous classes that I'm assuming that you guys have, that I might have shared or may not have shared. But according to Leviticus chapter 13, we know that what? That appearance of white skin is leprosy. According to Leviticus chapter 13, and then the scriptures in that very same chapter even describe what happens if that person is completely white. It gives you the two types of leprosy in human skin, put it like that, because it also talks about hair and patches and shit like that. But so according to that chapter, the spotted leprosy, whether it be in your scalp, your beard, or in your fingers, corner of your mouth, like you be seeing people, that's unclean leprosy. Now I don't know what the unclean. The Bible doesn't specify that if unclean means what do you call it, contagious. Leprosy isn't a thing that the Bible has shown to be contagious. It's a plague that the Most High plagued somebody with, based on all the other supporting scriptures, right? Like for instance, when the Most High had Elisha cure the Syrian captain of the Syrian army, his name was Naaman. Elisha had an understudy, a servant who was being groomed by Elisha to be the next prophet in his stead, just like Elisha was groomed to be the prophet that would follow Elijah. So Elisha had this servant whose name was Gehazi, and when the Most High used Elisha, told Naaman, the Syrian captain, and the Syrians had just conquered Israel, and there was a little girl that told that was in his kingdom, that was from Israel. She was a captain, and she told the captain, his wife, that there's a prophet down there that could cure him of that leprosy. So that's what happened. But what happened when Gehazi, Elisha's servant, tried to take money, a payment from it, the Most High did what? He had Elisha curse him. He said, the leprosy of Naaman was cured, but the leprosy of Naaman shall cleave to thee and until thy seed forever. So Gehazi became a white person, but he was an Israelite. And all of his seed is somewhere in the world. They got people like that down here. They call them hijos del sol, right? Children of the sun. And it's families. I'm talking about father, mother, and all the kids are all born lepers. Mayans, but the dark, and then they live in a village, but they're all dark as or darker than you and me. And it's a plague on that family. I ain't saying they're the Gehazites, but I'm saying that's what it is. So at this point that we're looking at, there are no so-called white people in Europe. White people don't even understand who the hell they are. They don't understand first and foremost that they're not white. All right, moving on. So he says, set thy, read that verse again on the exercise and focus on where that is. I'm trying to show you how the Most High is working this out. Go ahead on. On the exercise.
Sorry. Ezekiel 38 and verse 1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. And
now,
prophesy.
if you look, listen, Meshech and Tubal are different territories that also are between the Black and the Caspian Sea. We went through this one time before, you can see right. That's good, mommy. That's perfect. I just leave it like it was. Leave it like it was. Their eyes on is right, a little bit bigger, right there. If you look where it says Black Sea, go look at the A of the Black Sea and go all the way down, right on the shore. That's Tubal, but it's spelled TH. It's spelled Tubal, but that's Tubal. Do you see that, my water?
God, I can see it.
Okay, when you look to the right of that, you see Meshech. It says Meshech Gog. Meshech Gog Magog. Right to the right of Tubal. Do you see that? It's written like in a curve.
Where it say Gomer?
No. Listen. Focus on the word Tubal. Do you see Tubal?
Okay, yeah. I see it.
Okay, now look to the right. Right to the right. It's written kind of in a curve, and it says Meshech Gog Magog.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, y'all see that, right?
God.
Now, the prophecy is about the landmass, concerning the landmass, but today, who's dwelling there? It is the Edomite family of the Russians. And that's how the prophecies are. This is the power of prophecy. Because the Most High, see, it's one thing to say, people tend to describe it what I feel is inaccurate. They say the Most High knew this was going to happen. That's not true. The Most High made it happen. He knew it was going to happen because he developed it like that. You understand what I'm saying when I say he made it like that? The Most High is the one that manufactured the course of human history so that by the time the prophecies in Ezekiel 38 would become relevant, the people who would be there would be the Edomites. That's how amazing the prophecies are. Hold on, let me drink this water, y'all. And so because we look at that territory today, we look at where Magog is written, the word Magog, the big one up top, and then we look above that or through that, it says Scythians, right? And all of those words. And Gomer, you see up top where Gomer is, somebody said Gomer. Was that you that said Gomer, Walla?
God.
I'm talking about the one up top now. You see it's written a little bit bigger.
Yeah,
above
God.
the Black Sea.
God.
Do you see that?
God.
Okay. You see between the O and the M?
God.
You know what that little piece of land is today? That's Crimea. Huh? That's what Russia had to go and free up. And above Crimea is all of Ukraine. Huh? So people look at this map and say, oh, those were white people. But they weren't. The first so-called white person wouldn't be born until Genesis chapter 25. Years after that. Years after that. And it's not hard to do the trajectory. We can find out for the most part, when Esau and Jacob were born, huh? That's not difficult. I shouldn't be so lazy. I should go and get it done. How many years after the flood was Abraham born? How many years after the flood, was Shem? Shem had, who was it? Shem? Shem had Arphaxad. So how many years was Arphaxad born after the flood? Huh? Like 2 years. People don't know that. The flood came in the year of 1,656 years in the year of Adam. 1656, huh? Then 2 years after that, Shem engendered Arphaxad. Then it goes on in Genesis 11 and tells you how old Arphaxad was when who would he have? He would have Salah. Arphaxad would engender Salah or beget Salah. Salah would beget Eber, right? Eber would beget, maybe I might be missing the name, but Eber would beget Joktan and Peleg. And then Peleg would beget the Nahor, and then Nahor would beget Terah, and then Terah would beget Abraham. And it tells you how old each one was when they did it. You can find out. Then it tells you what? Abraham was 100 years old when he had Isaac. Right?
God.
Isaac was 60 years old when the twin was born. So from the flood to Jacob could be traced, right? On through to where? On through to Egypt. I just haven't put the thing down to do that. The point I'm trying to show you, it isn't until then that the father of the modern day white race will be born. The father of the modern day white race was born just minutes or however long it took for him to come out the womb before our father came out. So the Most High is making a prophecy about these lands that were originally inhabited by dark people, the descendants of Noah, particularly his son Japheth. But the prophecies are what? Are directed toward the people who occupy those lands in the last days. Is that clear for you? Is that being too mixed up for you?
No, that's clear.
I'm going to say it again. We're reading these prophecies, and even then, during the time of Israel, these people have spread out. But they're, how can we put it? Their core, how can I put that? I want to say their cultural foundation was there, and then they would expand a little bit farther out. I'm going to get this out. I'm going to show them what I'm saying. So you see Magog, once again, my water, right?
God.
Now you see above Magog and between the Black and the Caspian Sea, you see the word Scythian or Scythian written, right?
God.
Okay, do you see that?
God, I can see it.
Okay, I'm going to show you how the trajectory of them spreading or migrating. So, I want you to, I'm going to get you're going to come back to this, but I want you to get a map, biblical map, and put Scythians. Now remember the landmarks. The landmarks are the Black and the Caspian Sea. So I want you to get a map that says Roman Empire Scythians. Why? Because Paul speaks about the Scythians that he taught. When Paul says there's no difference between Jew or Greek, he's talking about the Israelites that would eventually, through conquest and migration, adopt Greek culture and be considered Greek. And then he said, but there's no difference between Jew and Greek. Why? Because they were still the seed of Abraham. He says Scythian and barbarian, because our people have moved up into those territories of Russia. So, once again, the prophecies that we're reading in Ezekiel are about these dark people's lands. But the prophecies themselves are directed toward the inhabitants of those lands that are mentioned in the last days. It just so happens that Esau, the Edomite family of Russia, is dwelling in that land. So this is who the prophecy is talking about. And it's happening according to clockwork, God. It's happening right now as we speak. What's going down in Russia? Between Russia and Ukraine, and then all the other nations and the position that they're taking in this conflict. All that is written. So let's see this. All right, you see the same thing, right? Now hold on, stop right there, because look at to the right. It says the Scythian migration route, and you see the arrow coming from the right, because that's where you got the Persian Empire, I want the Roman Empire, because that's where they in other words, this is where they started off at. You see where the map or where the arrow is coming from the extreme right? I'm just trying to show you migratory patterns. They had migrated all the way to there, and then during the time of the Roman Empire, they actually came back. Or in other words, back traced where they were originally from. And that's what was happening. You just had a lot of movement. Now look at Persia. Today, the Most High got prophecies about Mesopotamia. Right? But it's not talking about these people. It's talking about the people that occupy that region today. When you hear about, in Ezekiel 38, it says Persia. Persia's talking about Iran. Iran is going to be united with Russia. Everybody knows now Iran is already united with Russia. The Russians are the ones that's in charge of developing Iran's nuclear program. I don't, like I said, so I don't want to come across as though I'm going over your head. But there's certain topics, right, that you're just going to need time to be able to really grasp. You see what I'm saying, Doc? Because there are no, in the scriptures, the Most High doesn't take us through the historical migratory patterns. Thank you, Amiyatazah. They don't take us through the historical migratory patterns of all of these other nations. The focus is Israel, and then all the other nations that crossed paths, that intersected with Israel for whatever reason. Most of the nations' intersection with us had to do with us being conquered and punished. That's how the Assyrians come up on the scene. That's how the Babylonians. The book is not about the Babylonians. Outside of what? Later on in the trajectory, the Most High begins to prophesy against modern day Babylon. Okay, let's go back to that. Now, Daria, I want you to go ahead and take so you have identified Ma'wala Magog. You have identified Tubal. It says Tubal there, but it's talking about the same one, and you've been able to locate or identify Meshech. So that region is talking about the people that occupy this territory in the last days. Now, matter of fact, I want to prove that. So on the left side, you're still in chapter 38, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to read the whole chapter. I just want you to read verses 1 through 4.
Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord power, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back, and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor.
Now he's telling them, you're going to be mobilized. I'm going to take everybody that's with you, and I'm going to bring you forth to do my will. This is what he's saying. Go ahead.
Even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords.
Now we ain't going to go through the names yet. But the question, Mawala, is when is this supposed to happen? Jump down on the other side and read verse 15 and 16. It's going to continue. You're going to come with your armies.
Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 15. And thou shalt come from thy place out of the north parts.
Now we just look at the map, and Russia is to the north. God can make all this to the north. He said, I'm going to bring you out from the north. Go ahead.
And thou shalt come from thy place out of the north parts, thou and many people with thee, all of them riding upon horses, a great company and a mighty army.
Go ahead.
And thou shalt come up against my people of Israel.
This is talking about where we are scattered in America. Now, that what I just stressed, or what I just stated, is between verses 9 and 12. It describes what is America, the configuration of America, and how it's going to be done. But go ahead, read on.
Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse 16. And thou shalt come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days.
When is this going to happen out?
In the latter days.
So that's what I'm trying to show you. This is not a prophecy concerning the time when Ezekiel was even prophesying. This is a prophecy about whoever the head of state would be in the last days, residing in that territory that was what? Once occupied by Gog and Magog. And he's going to, the Most High is going to use him to invade where his people is, and also the land. So read verse 16 in its entirety. Go ahead.
Verse 16. And thou shalt come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days, and I will bring thee against my land.
And then I will bring you against my land. Now let me say this to you guys. So between January and March, the last day of March, Turkey was allowing Russia to use its airspace to bring troops from Russia to Syria. They're already there. They're on a 3-month on, 3-month off arrangement. So April, May, and June, Russia has been prohibited. But guess what just happened? I'm gonna get this up between April and now. Turkey has fallen out with the EU and with NATO. And it's being pushed to Russia. Watch, pretty soon they're gonna open up their airspace again. Turkey's going to war against Greece, huh? They're already fighting over them islands. So, in other words, all of this stuff is taking place. Eventually, you're going to see the Russian troops mobilize, right? Mobilize to come and participate or head an invasion with other nations in America and in Israel. Those are the two places. America with respect to where the Most High's people are, and Israel, or I should say the land with respect to the land, like he said, and the land. Read that verse one more time on the X and we're done.
Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse 16. And thou shalt come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days, and I will bring thee against my land, that the heathen may know me, when I shall be sanctified in thee, O Gog, before their eyes.
Moses said, I'm going to use you, because he's going to use God to destroy a whole lot of people. Then he's going to destroy God. And now this, what we just read, that little bit is even more concise in Revelation chapter 20. Like what you see taking place with the EU and NATO coming up against Russia, and they starting to activate Poland and all the other smaller Balkan countries and Baltic states against Russia, that's in the scriptures. Says that after the beast would arise out of the bottomless pit, which is that it would go to the four corners of the earth until it got to Gog and Magog. But then it also says that it would encompass the camp of the saints. And at that time, fire is going to come down from heaven. That's the Most High sending Christ with that. So outside of that, the issue is, listen, it's like that with any place. It's like that with any territory that we read about. You understand? Now listen, now I'm going to let this out. Meaning who occupies the territory of Japheth now? He said Japheth, so I focused on God because that's something that I could use. Because you see, it's one. Now let me just do this. You went to the Josephus. You got book 1, but Antiquities, book 1 and chapter 6. So now I want you to just start off reading the first paragraph of chapter 6. Okay.
First paragraph. Now they were.
You guys look back up at that map. I'm going to read, but I'm saying refer to the map when it pops up.
Now they were the grandchildren of Noah, in honor of whom names were imposed on the nations by those that first seized upon them. Japheth, the son of Noah, had 7 sons.
Now the very same information is written in Genesis chapter 10. Go ahead.
They inhabited.
Keep it like it is. That was perfect, right there. Go ahead. That's perfect. Go ahead.
They inhabited so that beginning at the mountain Taurus and Amanus.
Now let me say this. Why does it say that's where it began? Because that's about where listen, first of all, I'm going to show you where it's talking about. So you see the son, you see the name Japheth, right? I want you to focus on the E, right? Where the E. In that region, you got right above, let me see. Right above that, you got Ararat. You guys let me know when you see it. Right, we already found Meshech. So right below Meshech, you see Ararat. Do you see the word Ararat? Okay, that's where the ark rested, in the mountains of Ararat. So they began to come out, and he's telling us who, he's starting off with who He started off with Japheth first, and where their migratory pattern was. So he goes on to say, read it again, where it said that Japheth, pick it up from where it says Japheth, the son of Noah.
The son of Noah had 7 sons. They inhabited so that beginning at the mountain of Taurus and Amanus.
Stop right there. Now, based on what you see, I want you to look at the letter P of Japheth, and go all the way down to the bottom of that landmass, and you see Taurus.
Yeah, I see it right there.
All right.
Below the P.
From Taurus to Amanus, you would go to the right where you see Armenia.
Right?
By that's the region that where they first started off, the sons of Japheth. And from there they spread out. Now he's going to show you. So right there at Taurus, that's later on, thousands of years later, that's where Paul would be born. That would become Cilicia, Tarsus of Cilicia. Carried the same name or close enough to it. Go ahead, continue to read, W.
They proceeded along Asia.
Now, when it says they proceeded along Asia, everything from the J, especially the not the J, the P, all the way down to the rest of the word. When you see P, H, E, T, H, all of that is Asia. Right in the middle, P, H, and T, or P, H, and E, that's called Asia Minor. That's Turkey today. And then everything else is Asia proper. You have West Asia, which is our land. The westernmost part of Asia is the Mediterranean coast, the land of Canaan, Palestine. Moving eastward, by the time you get to Persia, you're in the Middle East. Then once you get into after Persia, like India, Persia can even be from Persia, Afghanistan, which is Parthia. All of that could be considered Central Asia. Then you have India that goes farther east of Iran today, or Persia. That's considered East Asia, and then everything from China to Japan is considered the Far East. When you move down China and start going into places like Burma, places like Taiwan, that's called Southeast Asia. You've been hearing about Southeast Asia and all that shit. All right?
Got it.
So this is the section of Asia that Japheth took. Go ahead, I'll continue to read, W.
As far as the river Tanais, and along Europe to Cadiz.
So that's when you see what? That's about where the J would be at. From there all the way down to the H. That's what this map is describing. When you see the map from J to H, that's the region that Josephus named. Go ahead.
And setting themselves on the lands which they light upon, which none had inhabited before.
Okay, that's good enough, Bob. So, in other words, these were territories of the land or of Noah's son Japheth, but the prophecies concerning any of these territories. Now, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to let You're still in Ezekiel 38, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Listen to who the Most High say is going to be with God. So read verse 4 again and then go down into verse 5 only for now.
Okay. Ezekiel 38 and verse 4. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords.
Now listen to who's going to accompany, who's going to be in this military campaign along with the people that are inhabiting the lands of God. Today will be Russia. Go ahead, Amiyatazar.
Verse 5. Persia.
Now stop right there. Persia. You got to scroll, Amiyatazar, toward the Persian Gulf now. You see where it stop right there. You see where it says Paris, P-A. You see the Persian Gulf to the right of the screen, right, y'all?
God.
God.
Above that, you see P-A-R-E-S.
Come.
God.
From there all the way up to Madai today is Persia. All the way up to the TH of Japheth. That's Persia. Today that's Iran. That's who's going to accompany Russia. And you see it in the news already. Guess what happened today? I'm going to get this up. Iran seized 2 Greek ships in the Persian Gulf. Flew in with a helicopter and took 23 crewmen on one and 25 on the next. Got in touch with Greece and said, you got 17 more ships in my Gulf. So what happened was the Greeks with the U.S. had seized a Persian oil tanker with hundreds of thousands of gallons of oil, barrels of oil that belonged to Russia. So they decided to wait till they got some leverage. Now they have 2 of them in custody, and they're threatening to take the other 17 unless they took. But this shit is getting it already. And the reason why they took the Persian tanker was because it was flying a Russian flag because it has Russian petroleum, and they seized it because of what? The sanction that's on Russia. So what we're reading right now, the groundwork for all of this is being laid. But it ain't talking about black people. It's talking about who? It's talking about these people. The Russians, meaning the Edomite family, they're known in the Bible in Revelations chapter 13 as the bear, the feet of the bear that was on the beast. So there you got it. Persia. What's the next word on the exam?
Ethiopia.
Now scroll farther down because now we're in the land of Ham. In other words, what people call the continent of Africa. Look at that. Now I used to tell everybody, the Ethiopians is the entire Horn of Africa. So you see that little pointy thing, that section where it says Sabithia or Sabithacha?
God.
To the right. Everything from there all the way up to Nubia is old Ethiopia. They're going to join Russia. All right? Go ahead on the exercise. So we know those are Hamites. We know that those are the sons of Ham by way of Cush. So everything from Nubia, Seba, Cush, Ethiopia, and Sabthecha, a little bit on farther down, that's Ethiopia. Or I should say a little bit farther south. That's Ethiopia. These people are going to come. So who occupy those lands today? When you deal with Nubia, guess what you're dealing with? You're dealing with the Sudan. The word Nubia is the territory known as Sudan. You know who the Sudanese are, right? Those are the original Egyptians that enslaved us. Those are the real ones. Those ones, the tall ass 9 feet dudes. I use the restroom. I need for you to look up an image. Look up Sudanese, the tribe Nuer. N-U-E-R. I'll be right back. And these are the people, and listen, so when you go further down, that land that is between Nubia to Sabthecha, who you got? You got Ethiopia, one from the top. You got the Sudan. You have Ethiopia. You have Somalia. You have Eritrea. And you have Djibouti. They're going to all be involved, one or all of them, because that's old Ethiopia that was divided by the British and the Italians during their colonial days from the 1840s on up. From the 1840s to World War I, World War II. Really World War I. I'll be right back on the exercise. Did you hear him up? Yeah. Okay. Okay, go ahead. I'm gonna get to that. Did you got that image up there? Or did you find anything out?
Yeah.
And just put it, and listen. And so from this, let me just ask you, brother, do you understand the point of what I'm making? The point that I'm making, Marwala?
You saying that
Or did they think freeze?
No.
Or they all look like they frozen, huh? And on my screen, Marwala's looking at his phone, Daria's looking at his damn phone. Everybody's frozen, huh? Are you guys moving? Can you hear me?
God.
Okay, now, yeah, okay, now they came to life.
Brother Kawakab.
All right. Yes. Let me say, hold on. So, Marwala, do you get the point that I'm sharing?
Yeah, you saying they weren't the people, which I kind of knew. I was just trying to figure out like what you was just breaking down, like how did they like migrated, or integrated?
Exactly. That's world history. That's not something that the Most High gave to us in the Bible.
God.
That's literally a study that would have to be done through world history. And you have to go in and specify, and those are pieces of information that Esau making a point to hide. It's not, let me say this, it's not, quote, difficult to do. Esau have that information, but that's not something that's part of his control of the world. That's part of what it facilitates his ability to manipulate people, because nobody knows anything. The more ignorant you can keep people, you understand, the more power you can exercise over them. So yeah, that's not something and that's not even something that I teach, because I don't have that information. But I haven't gone after it either, because either I'm going to get that information, or I'm going to get what the Bible, I'm going to get the information that the Bible is about and is directed toward me. So that's the best that I can really do for you, okay?
God.
All right.
Hey, Kawakab.
I still want to see them Egyptians.
Hey, Kawakab, quick question.
Hold on out.
Sudanese.
Yeah, that tribe Noor specifically. I used to.
They ain't got the pictures that he used to share.
And that's something I told you, it's all scrubbed. You might have to go to, I told you, like, you got to use that other browser. Look at that. Now that's them. When you be reading the scriptures about David's men, Joab, and how they fought 2 Egyptians and men of great stature, that's them. The Philistines, the Philistines were a family of Egyptians. People don't really realize that. Philistine was one of the sons of Mizraim.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's Genesis chapter 10.
That makes sense.
These are the true Palestinians as well. Not the Arabs living there now. Short people. They make the people that David was constantly going to war with. So So, all right,
Weak ass nigga, man.
brothers, what any other question?
Khan,
Any
quick
other-
question.
Who was that? That's you, Elisha?
Khan,
What you got, Art?
was Saudi Arabia part of Persia?
No, Art. Listen, let's do that. So, put that map back up on me, Etizar.
Khan.
That's like a great question, because not only are they not Arabs, part of the Arabs. Let's do this. Dariyad, I'm going to put that map back up. Everybody's questions is leading to the same little piece of information. Put that map back up, and this is what we're going to do. Go to Genesis chapter 10. Now this time, there you go. You're going to go to Shemot, right there. Now first, we're going to do, matter of fact, drop it on, let me see who pops up first. I think Shem is last. I think Ham is described before Shem, right? In Genesis chapter 10. Let me see something. They're both Shem. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to read Genesis chapter 10, starting at verse, hold on, let me get there. Starting at verse, I still can't read Roman numerals, y'all. I'm sorry. Okay. Starting at verse 22. Alright?
Come.
At verse 22, and then Dawiyah, you still got the Josephus.
Got it out.
So you're going to start at verse, not verse, but the same chapter 6 and paragraph 4.
Paragraph 4, gotcha.
Responds with Genesis chapter 1 and verse 21.
Come.
I said verse 21. So go ahead, I can read verse 21 on the exercise.
Genesis chapter 10 and verse 21. Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth the elder, even to him were children born.
All right, go ahead. Now this is Shem. Shem is the middle son. Japheth was the oldest. Shem is the second, and Ham, like you read in the book of Zondervan, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood. We done read that so many times, we could recite that verbatim. He became the progenitor of the dark nations, not the Negroes, but and then they got right. That's the youngest one. So these are the sons of Shem. Go ahead.
Verse 22. The children of Shem, Elam, and Asher, and Arphaxad, and Lud,
Come.
and Aram.
Now when you read the Josephus, go ahead and read that. Read paragraph 4 so that you can see who everybody is today, Elisha. All right? Now the Arabs, don't get me wrong, they do come from Shem, but we're going to trace them after we find out who the Persians come from. So you got Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, and Lud, and Aram. Go ahead.
Khan.
Verse 4, paragraph 4. Shem, the third son of Noah, had 5 sons who inhabited the land that began in Euphrates.
Listen, you see the map. Began at the Euphrates. Now when he said began at the Euphrates, he's working from Mount Ararat coming on southward. So remember, we don't have it on the map yet because we're dealing down south. But remember what we saw, Ararat, so many kilometers down, the Euphrates River begins in Syria. So we're going to find out who these people are. Go ahead, Ike.
It says, and reached to the Indian Ocean.
And it reached to the Indian Ocean. The Indian Ocean is the Persian Gulf releases into the Gulf of Oman, and the Gulf of Oman releases into the Indian Ocean. So he's telling you all of this was Shem's territory, and it includes, you're looking at the word Shem right through the Arabian Peninsula.
God.
Elisha, you see that?
Khan.
The biggest word is Shem, and the next biggest word is Arabians, but the Arabians ain't nowhere near to being born yet. The Arabians are like newcomers on the block. I'm going to show you. Go ahead.
It says, for Elam left behind him the Elamites, the ancestors of the Persians.
So that's how you know who they are. The Elamites became known as the Persians. Go ahead.
Assur lived at the city Neve and named his subject Assyrians.
That's who the father of the Assyrians are, Assur. That's farther up. The Persians go, you see, you gotta follow, you gotta follow.
I'm not pressing any camera stuff. But I did press resume stream.
This is how this is how hateful Israel is toward one another. Now I understand, brothers are not trying to assume association with other people's ill behavior. Whether like me when I get bolder or anyone else, brothers, you guys are back?
No, we're back.
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, hold on, I'm dropping on the other side now. So, we had announced the new show. We had announced Fireside Chat from Tikal to London, right? So he made a point, and I want to just clear it up real quick. Did you get that definition out?
Yeah.
He made the point about watching some brothers' videos and how they began with a disclaimer that says that they have no other affiliation within their group. And I was telling him that they don't mean that, but they're lying. They don't understand we all have an affiliation, because the word affiliation, I want to better what you call it. There you go, number 2. Look at it. Scroll to the second, I'm going to see what my dictionary has to say. For like these brothers who be writing, yeah, we have no affiliation with any other group. What they're supposed to write, which would be a shame if they did, is we have no fellowship, which means friendship or brotherhood with the brothers. That's what it really is. But I'm gonna read what affiliation really means. Hold on, you can find you can find another source, get a Webster or something.
Let me check.
Okay, hold up. I'm just. Don't worry, y'all. I'm coming back to you. Just read this. Is affiliation spelled with 2 F's, sir?
Yes.
Okay, affiliation.
State or relation of being closely associated with a
Now,
particular
put that into the damn world, I used to have, you go and put it up, and you used to have the dictionary that would literally tell you that affiliation, for instance, here, like it said, affiliate. I'm reading this out of the dictionary that I have is called, it's an older one, it's called the Webster's Encyclopedic Unabridged Dictionary of the English Language. And when you look up affiliate, it literally, under the third, number 1, I'll be fair, the first definition says to bring into close association or connection. And then it uses an example that could be referred to us. Both schools are affiliated with the university. But now that's number 1. Number 2, it says to attach or unite on terms of what? Fellowship. That's what we don't have. We do go back to the same damn university. The University of, what is it? The Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. We are affiliated in that sense. But number 2, meaning in the sense of the first definition, in the sense of the definition, the second definition, to attach or unite on terms of fellowship. That's talking about friendship and what? Companionship. That's talking about actual interaction. And then the third one is one that nobody can deny they have affiliation. And it says, Number 3 is to trace the descent, derivation, or origin. So who is all of our origins? Is it not Jacob? Is it not Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob on the Yetzirah?
Yeah.
So what we don't have, like I said, is fellowship. Association in the sense of fellowship. And that's not something to be proud of. But I understand why brothers do it. I understand. You'll never hear me put a disclaimer unless I don't know the person, and I won't put no disclaimer and say, you ask me, do you know this brother's name? No, I don't know. That's all it is to it. But if they're in Christ and I'm in Christ, then we're affiliated whether we want to be or not. How are you going to be in the truth and say you're not affiliated with other people that's in the truth?
Exactly.
I was Israel. I can't wait till Christ comes back and whoop our asses, because Israel need a big foot up their ass. Hold on, Elisha. I'm coming back to you, brother. We just was filling in the space. We didn't know if the stream was still going, right, or the recording, so we didn't want y'all to go through whatever, how many minutes of voidness. Okay, now I haven't shown you the first question yet. But I don't want you to forget what point you want to make now, because you just raised your hand as well, Elisha. So what do you want to say, brother?
I was just on the affiliation. It was the 1828 dictionary. It said adoption, association in the same family or society.
And that's the one that I wanted. The same family, because we are affiliated, but we ain't got no fellowship. The level of our affiliation, as we're hateful toward one another. Ain't no way in the world you can say that you're Christ. Hell, even Paul didn't do that. Paul said the brothers is false, but Paul said whether a person is sincere or whether what? Whether they teach out of contention, either way, Christ is taught. Either way, Christ is preached. But like I said, Christ will deal with us himself. Man, brother, I'm afraid. Because we have behaved, we're horrible with what we know. Israel will teach forgiveness and don't forgive at all. Don't forgive at all. But listen, I'm gonna get off of that. Right? Most of us, and I didn't throw in, we're so off. The spirit, how we operate, is completely off. But the Most High, this is what his grace covered. Because believe it or not, we degenerate as people, this is the best that we actually have to offer, and we are going to be saved. And that's why the Christ said, Most High said he's going to purge out the rebels. Those that are not going to be able to make that adjustment in the wilderness, Christ's going to kill. So that's not a problem we actually got to worry about unless you don't plan on adapting, unless you don't plan on changing and obeying. Okay, so here we are in Genesis chapter 1, and Dalia, you were reading paragraph 4, and you had gotten as far as paragraph 4 in chapter 6 of book 1.
A sword lit at the city Nev and named the subjects Assyrians, who became the most fortunate nation beyond others.
Now hold on, yeah, okay, and he became the most fortunate nation beyond others. When he's talking that, he's talking about how the development of each of these nations began. But later on, Babylon, Nimrod would supersede him. This was up until Nimrod was born. Go ahead.
Arphaxad named the Arphaxadites, who are now called Chaldeans.
Now, hold on, don't just breathe by that, because that's who we are. You guys maybe haven't known that, but when he says Arphaxad, in verse 22 it says, the children of Shem, Elam, Ashur, and Arphaxad, Lud, and Ram. Arphaxad is who we come from. And when you read the Bible and it talks about the Chaldeans, that was the family that the Most High pulled Abraham. They are our genealogical predecessors. And the Most High pulled Abraham out from the descendants of Arphaxad, or the Chaldeans. Go ahead.
Aram had the Aramites, which the Greeks called Syrians.
So then you have the Syrians, not the Assyrians, like as in Ashur, but the Syrians from Aram. Now, When you read Genesis 25 or Genesis where it tells you that Bethuel, the Syrian of Padanaram, the father of Laban, the Syrian, those were Arphaxad, those were Aram, those were, I'm sorry, from Aram, but the ones that are mentioned in Genesis 25 are the Hebrews that moved there. So when Abraham left the land of the Chaldeans, or of the Chaldeans, to dwell in Aram, those people were they were from Shem, but they were from Aram, and we began to be, I say we, our people, Abraham's brother, Nahor, began to be known as the Syrian. Nahor had Bethuel had Laban and Rebekah. Alright? Go ahead, Al.
It says, which the Greeks called Syrians, as Lod founded the Lodites, which are
Now
now
the Lodites, go ahead.
which are now called Lydians.
Now the Midianites, these cats will be one of the kingdoms in the territory of Turkey, Lydia. Alright, go ahead.
Of the four sons of Aram, Uz founded Trachonitis, and Damascus. This country lies between Palestine and Celsira.
Syria. That's just talking about the region, basically from the land of, how can we put it? All the land of Israel between the Jordan and moving on over to the east of the Jordan on up to where basically it would be like the land of Jordan. Jordan going on up into Syria. That's Syria. Or the other books will say Cold Syria. Coele Syria. But it's the same place. Go ahead.
Ui founded Armenia and gathered the Bactrians.
And gathered the Bactrians. Go ahead.
And Messa the Messarians. Messenians. It is now called Chirax. Spani. From Spasani.
Right.
Salah was the son of Arphaxad.
So this is what I was mentioning before. We come from Arphaxad. Arphaxad had a son named Salah. I mean, you have to say, you pick it back up now. No, this is not going to be, yeah, it is. You pick it back up at verse 22 of Genesis.
Genesis chapter 10 and verse 22. The children of Shem, Elam, and Asher, and Arphaxad, and Lud, and Aram.
Okay.
And the children of Aram, Uz, and Hul, and Gephar, and Mash.
Now that's just what you just got through reading, Daria. Go ahead.
Verse 24. And Arphaxad begat Salah, and Salah begat Eber.
Uh-huh.
And unto Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided.
That's talking about he was born during the time where the Most High divided everybody at the Tower of Babel. That's in Genesis 11, the following chapter. Go ahead. You following along, right, Elisha?
Come.
Okay, go ahead. Now, guess what we're doing now? In verse 22 of this chapter, and in the Josephus, paragraph 4, you know that the Persians come from Elam. What are we doing now? We're tracing the Arabs, because they're the sons of Ishmael. But we're just going to finish out this with Arphaxad. Go ahead, like you said, and unto Eber, verse 25 again.
Verse 25 from the top. And unto Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided, and his brother's name was Joktan.
Now, from verse 26 to the end, is talking about Joktan, who we don't come from. Everybody under Arphaxad, in verse 24, from there on down, guess who he's talking about? This is the descendant of the Chaldeans, but through Joktan. We come from the Chaldeans through Peleg. So what you got to do is you got to go to the following chapter and you got to pick it up at verse 10. You go to chapter 11, Amayetazah. The reason why I'm stopping here is because verse 26 says, in Joktan begat Almadad. Well, that's not us. So we're going to start back over, but this time Genesis 11, Elisha, and verse 10, and we're going to start back at Shem, and it's going to go to Arphaxad, and then it's going to go to Peleg, our line. All right? Go ahead.
Genesis chapter 11, verse 10. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood.
So that means the flood came in 1656. Arphaxad was born when? He was born 1258. Or you can say he was born in the year 2 of the new era. All right? Go ahead.
Verse 11. And Shem lived
Let me be clear. Let me be clear what I'm saying. It says Arphaxad, that Shem begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. So why do I say 158 or 1658? Because that's the year that the flood came in. From the time of Adam all the way to the day that the flood came was 1,656 years. Now, the Most High wiped everybody with the exception of Noah's family out. So you can continue that count and say 1,658 in the year of Adam, or you can say what? You can say the year 2 of the new era. Because the Most High literally, if this ain't starting all over, ain't no such thing as starting all over.
Yeah.
That's when this dude was born.
God.
So go ahead, I'm going to get to zone.
Genesis chapter 11 and verse 11. And Shem lived after he begat Arphaxad 500 years, and begat sons and daughters.
So now Shem had way more sons and daughters. But Arphaxad is the one who what? He's the one. Now remember when he said Shem had other and lived and begot sons and daughters. Who are the sons? We just read it in Genesis chapter 10. If he would have had more sons, they would have mentioned it. So he had way more daughters. Chapter 10 just mentioned Shem's sons. Shem had 5 of them. This is Arphaxad, but the others were who? Aram, who became the Syrians, Ashur, who became the Assyrians, Lud, who became the Lydians, and Elam, who became the Persians. Those are all his sons. Everyone else he had daughters. Now, Arphaxad, we found out who the others become. Who the others became, the other sons. The daughters gave what? Birth to whoever the man, whatever seed was put in them. They continued on whoever's nation that they married. But this person, Arphaxad, fathered the who? He was the progenitor of the Chaldeans. So from this moment forward, we're reading about the lineage of the Chaldeans. The Arphaxadites are the Chaldeans. Go ahead, Ike.
Verse 12. And Arphaxad lived 35 years and begat Salah.
So what can we say here? We can say that this is year what? That Salah was born in year 37 of the new era. Wrong or right?
God.
Or we can tack what? We got 1,658 years and plus what? 1,658 plus 35. Because that's how old Arphaxad was when he was first born. What do? We're actually tracing the year that Abraham was born in.
Wow. So,
and we're doing it from the time of Adam.
God.
This is called like, and you can do this all the way up until when we left Egypt. The chronology is there. Go ahead, Ak.
Verse 13. And Arphaxad lived after he begat Salah 403 years, and begat sons and daughters.
Do me a favor, somebody, I want you to keep the count right now. So that means we got 1,600. You want to do it on the other side? Well, somebody do it. 1,000. Don't be lazy. Somebody do it. Somebody raise their hand and say, I'll do it. Damn it. This is how you take notes. I want somebody to write this shit. Along with, thank you, brother. Along with you can use the computer to calculate it because my mind can't work it like that either. So listen, 1,000. This is what we're going to do so that you guys can know I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. Davion, I want you to take. Hold on. I'm going to get the years for you. Okay, now we got Book 1, Chapter 3. Alright?
Come.
Book 1, Chapter 3, Paragraph 3.
Okay.
And just before you get to paragraph 4, you're going to see what it says. Now, he says that the flood began.
Come, that's right before 82.
Okay, read that paragraph real quick.
Now he says that this flood began on the 27th day of the aforementioned month. And this was 2,656 years.
Now, let me say this. The reason why he said 2,056 years, guess what? He's adding 1,000 years from the day that man was placed, which is what? The 5th day. But Adam was raised up on the 6th day when Adam was made in the image of the Most High. So he has that year as well. Read what it says in the brackets.
It says 1,656
56 what?
years from Adam, the first man.
There you go. The 1,656 years is from the time of Adam, but the 2,656 is from the day before. And this proves that what? That Genesis chapter 1 is dealing with 1,000-year increments. Because when was the human being placed on the earth, y'all? In Genesis chapter 1, he is counted among all the things that the Lord said, let the earth bring forth cattle and everything that moves. That's when man was created.
God.
And then the Most High created the person, the image that would rule them and called him man. And that was the day that Adam was created. And the flood came 1,000, like it says. Now, my calculation don't come from this. My calculation literally comes from Genesis chapter 5 all the way to Genesis chapter 6. That's where my calculation comes. And it just so happens to be 1,656. So, now I want you to put next to that 1,000. I'm going to be doing this too as well. What the hell, why not? But I want somebody to take the notes. I've got my little calculator here. 1,656 plus 2. That's 1,658. That's who? Who was born then?
Or Vexed.
That was our fact set. Alright? Now in verse 12, what does it say in verse 12 on the exercise?
In verse 12 it says, and Arphaxad lived 35 years and begat Salah.
So you put plus 35, and that's Salah, 1,693. Because it's 35 years later. 35 years after his birth, he bears his first son. Or he begets his first son. Alright? Go ahead on the Yetazah.
Verse 13. And Arphaxad lived after he begat Salah 403 years and begat sons and daughters.
Go ahead.
Verse 14. And Salah lived 30 years and begat Eber.
So now we're going to do plus 30. Isn't this fun? 1723. And that's when who? That's when Eber is born. Now, before we continue, you got to go back to chapter 6, paragraph 4, and pick up where you left off. It's going to say, Eber or Salah. You're going to read Salah was the son of Arphaxad.
Yeah, it says right here, right after 146.
Right.
Salah was the son of Arphaxad, and his son was Heber.
Now that's him right here. So when was Eber born? 1,723 years after Adam, or you can take that and minus 2 and say what? Or minus, you can take that and minus 1,656, and that would be the new era. I ain't trying to confuse nobody. We're going to move forward. Go ahead. Darius, I want you to finish reading. Go ahead.
From whom they originally called the Jews Hebrews. Heber.
So that you guys know, this is who we got our cultural name from. The name Eber in the Bible or Heber in Josephus is where the term Hebrew comes from. All right? Now, it was this Heber that got Phaleg and Joktan. Remember that. Genesis chapter 10, verses 26 on down tells you about the lineage of Joktan, the son of Eber. But we're reading now in Genesis 11 the lineage from Eber to Salah. From Eber to Peleg. Continue, Darius.
Heber begat Joktan and Phaleg. He was called Peleg because he was born at the dispersion of the nations to their several countries.
Okay, that's good enough. That's good enough. I just want you guys to see the significance in the Bible of Heber. All right? Okay, I'm going to let this up. Pick up where you left off. Call me verse.
Genesis chapter 11 and verse 15. And Salah lived after he begat Eber 403 years, and begat sons and daughters. And Eber lived 30 years, and begat Peleg.
So we got 1723 plus what? It says 4 and 30?
Yeah.
Okay, so plus 34. And that's the year from Adam that Peleg was born, 1,757. Or, once again, you can subtract 1,656, and it will be that was the year of the new era. Go ahead.
Verse 17. And Eber lived after he begat Peleg 430 years, and begat sons and daughters. And Peleg lived 30 years, and begat Reu.
Alright, plus 30. And we got 1787, and that's when Reu was born. Go ahead.
Verse 19. And Peleg lived after he begat Reu 209 years, and begat sons and daughters. And Reu lived 32 years, and begat Serug.
Plus 32, 1,819. That's when Serug was born. Go ahead. Now, like I said, when I do these long years, 1,819. That's from the time of Adam. Go ahead.
Verse 21. And Reu lived after he begat Serug 207 years, and begat sons and daughters. And Serug lived 30 years, and begat Nahor.
Okay, plus 30. 1849, Nahor was born. Now this Nahor is Abraham's grandfather. This is the father of Terah. Go ahead.
Verse 22. And Serug lived 30 years, and begat Nahor. And Serug lived after he begat Nahor 200 years, and begat sons and daughters.
Go ahead.
Verse 24. And Nahor lived 29 years, and begat Terah.
Hold on. Plus 29. And then, now this is Abraham's father. Now, the Most High don't want us to know the details, so look at what happens. Go ahead.
Verse 25. And Nahor lived after he begat Terah 190 years, and begat sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years, and begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran.
Now, that's telling us that by the time he was 70 years old, those 3 sons were born. It's not telling us that they were triplets. that they were all born when Terah was 70. Why do I say that? That's how we know the Most High don't want us tracing it to the detail.
Come.
Now I'm gonna show you some similarity though. Go to Genesis chapter 5. Let me show y'all something. Genesis chapter 5, and I want you to read the last verse on here, it's verse 32.
Genesis chapter 5 and verse 32. And Noah was 500 years old. And Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Okay, so it says the same thing with Noah. By the time he was 500 years old, what happened? Shem, Ham, and Japheth were born. But check this out. This is we were able to decipher it. When you go back to Genesis chapter 11 and read verse 10, you can find out how old Noah was when Shem was born. Specifically Shem. Read verse, go back now. He's 500 years old and all three of his sons are born. But guess what happened? The flood came in 1656, but Noah was 600 years old when the flood came. Right? Hold on now. You guys got to know this. Hold up. Go to chapter 7, chapter 7, and read verse 6. I'm going to get this up.
Genesis chapter 7 and verse 6. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth.
So he's 600 years old. It's the year 1656, and we go to chapter 11 and read verse 10, and what do we get? Go ahead.
Genesis chapter 11 and verse 10. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood.
So how old was he when the flood came?
98. 98.
Say that again.
98.
So how old was Noah? This dude was born 100 years before the flood. The flood came when Noah was 600 years old, so he was born when Noah was what? Was 500. Let me do the math right. Is that right, Amiyatazal?
600.
You work it out while I use the restroom. I never can think straight when I gotta use the restroom. I'll be right back.
Right. Being a generation of Shem. Shem was 100 years old. Shem lived. Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Shem was the eldest. How would you guys got him at?
Shot.
It's 502. I didn't hear what he said.
Yeah, that's like a mathematical equation, and I've never been good at that, but I know it's not as clean as 100, you know? But what were you able to come up with, Amayetazar?
I got lost.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you got to sit down and work it out, but it's calculable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All we can say now is from the time that, by the time Nahor or Terah was 70, his 3 sons were born, and that's where it stops. Now, really quick, Elisha, what chapter? Is it chapter what? 15? 15 or 16, what chapter is Ishmael born?
Chapter.
Because that's, remember, Abraham is here now.
17.
And he's 86 when, he's 86. It's chapter 16, right?
Yeah.
Go to Genesis chapter 16.
That was chapter 1.
Genesis chapter 16.
Verse 16,
and, what verse yet? So we're going to narrow it down to the verse. You don't have to read the whole account.
16 verse 11.
Okay.
Straight to the point.
Verse 4.
Is it verse 4?
And he went in unto Hagar, for she could
Go
see.
ahead. Well, then you might as well start with verse 1. Go ahead.
Okay. Genesis chapter 16 and verse 1. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her.
So she was literally going to make Hagar the surrogate mother of Abraham's son. That was her intention. That this is going to be my son because you're my property. Go ahead.
Verse 3. Bottom of verse 2. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife.
Go ahead.
And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes.
Okay, let's stop off there. In other words, she's pregnant now. Jump down on the letters at verse 15 and 16. The last 2 verses of this chapter.
Genesis chapter 16 and verse 15. And Hagar bare Abram a son, and Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bare Ishmael to Abram.
Now, how can we know that these are the Arabs? You got to go to Galatians. Let's go to Galatians. Now that we know that Ishmael is born. Hold on. Elisha, I'm looking for you to find out. It's going to be chapter 4 or chapter 3. For this issue, it says for this, it's going to be chapter 4, all right? Chapter 4, and we're going to start off at verse 22. All right? I'm going to let this out, and you're going to read. Yeah, just go ahead and read out. I'll tell you when to stop.
Galatians chapter 4 and verse 22. For it is written that Abraham had 2 sons, the one by a bondmaid, the other by a free woman.
Now when you get to Genesis chapter 21, Isaac is born. So in chapter 16, Ishmael is born. In chapter 21, chapter 16, Ishmael is born. Abraham is 86 years old. chapter 21, Isaac is born and he's 100 years old. That it covers that span, all right? And then once Isaac was born, Sarah said, "You got to keep this woman and her son out, for he shall not share any of my son's heritage." He's not going to be an heir. Go ahead.
Verse 23. But he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh. But he of the free woman was by promise.
That means the one that was born of the bondwoman, Hagar, that was Abraham's genealogical descendant. But Isaac, later on in chapter 21, is the one with whom the Most High extended his promise. And that's why he remember, Abraham was afflicted. And the Lord said, "Hearken to the voice of your woman and put him out. For Isaac, I will make him a great nation, and it's with him that I will what? Extend my covenant." Go ahead.
Verse 24. Which things are an allegory.
He said these things are symbolic. They really happened, but they symbolize something with the Most High in his trajectory with Israel's history. Go ahead.
For these are the two covenants. The one from the Mount Sinai, which gendereth to bondage, which is Agar. For this Agar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and answereth to Jerusalem, which now is.
So when he said this Agar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, he's telling us those two sons symbolize two different covenants. Now he's not telling you that the Most High made a covenant. He's telling you because that son was from Abraham and was the child of the flesh, what happened? It symbolizes a covenant that the Most High made with us in the flesh. It was what? It goes back to Genesis 24. It was when the bulls were killed, the Most High had Moses receive the law, read it to the people, and then he did a big sacrifice and sprinkled all the blood on the items, the law, and on the altar, and then on the people. And then when you read it in that chapter, chapter 24, verse 8, this is the covenant that the Lord maketh with you today. When he's telling you that first son that Abraham had symbolized the fleshly covenant. Why? Because we ended up breaking it. That's what he said when he said these things are an allegory. But he's telling you that where the Ishmaelites would end up, Arabia. Why? Because that's what the Most High made the covenant with us, y'all. We were in the land of, put the map back up on we were in the land of Midian in Arabia.
Oh, that's crazy, bro.
It was a fleshly covenant because and when this is fleshly, the covenant was spiritual, meaning the law. But we, carnal, could not what? Accommodate the spirituality of the law. That's what's written in Romans chapter 7. For the law is holy and spiritual, but I am carnal. Bring it up. Stop right there. Look at, go farther up to what the Sinai is. Right there. You see where it says Midian, y'all? Green, make it bigger on me. It's right, the Red Sea region. Make it bigger. Right there. You guys see Midian? Now the problem is they got Midian down there in the peninsula, the Egyptian wilderness. But Midian was on the other side of what? Right there. Midian. You see where Sinai is in the Midian? It's supposed to be located to where the word Ishmael is. Midian was on the other side of the body of water. That's where Midian is at. But you notice where it says Ishmael.
Yeah.
So it's telling you that what? That first covenant, which is symbolic, Abraham's first son was really symbolic of a fleshly covenant, a fleshly first covenant that the Most High would make with the chosen seed that would come from Isaac. It mixes people up, but that's what he's telling us. Read verse 25 again. Read verse 24 again.
Verse 24. Which things are an allegory? For these are the two covenants. The one from the Mount Sinai, which gendereth to bondage, which is Agar. For this
Agar is what? Is Hagar in Genesis chapter 16 that we were just reading. That's who gave birth to Ishmael. Go ahead.
Verse 25. For this Agar is Mount Sinai in Arabia.
So you see how they got what? They got Mount Sinai or the Sinai wrongly placed. Because you see where it says Arabia right under Shem, and on that side of the Gulf of Aqaba is what it's called, that fork of the Red Sea is on the Ishmaelite side in Arabia. This is how you know the Arabs are who? Are the Arabians. Because their land is Ishmael in Arabia. Go ahead.
Verse 25. For this Agar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and answereth to Jerusalem, which now is, and is in bondage with her children.
In other words, the bondage that we were under is sin, not because of the law. The law exploited. The law, this is not part of the question that you asked, but I'm just trying to explain the verse. The law exploited, the spiritual law exploited our carnality. That's why we kept breaking it. That's a lesson in and into itself that would actually begin in 2 Ezra chapter 3. Where the Most High tell you, we got the law, but he left a wicked heart in us. And so it said infirmity, meaning mental, spiritual wickedness, it said was made permanent. Alright? That's what it's referring to. But anyway, I just tried to find the quickest route before class was over, Elisha, to show you how to prove that that the Arabs are not the same as the Persians. Now they both come from Shem, but the Persians come directly from who? From Shem. Remember, they come from Elam, one of Shem's 5 sons. But the Arabs come from, we read the genealogy in chapter 11. We come from starting off at Shem, Arphaxad, Selah, Eber, Peleg, Serug, Ru, all them cats, all the way down to Abraham, and then Ishmael. So they're Shemites, but guess what the Arabs really are? The Arabs are Hebrews. Remember, Abraham was a Hebrew. How Abraham going to be a Hebrew and the Arab not? Wrong, and they're going before us. They're just not the chosen people. Esau is a Hebrew. How Abraham going to be a Hebrew? Isaac going to be a Hebrew, and then they got twins. One of them is a Hebrew, another one ain't.
Can't do that.
Twins. Growing up in the same house, speaking the same language. But the Most High set Esau to the side and chose Jacob. Alright? So, next week, y'all, I hope I didn't get too convoluted, Mount Water, with your question, you know?
God.
The water.
But listen, my suggestion to you strongly is to focus on the message of the book and all the things that the Bible have to offer us. Because you're not gonna never run out. But when you start, listen, you got a lot of schools, a lot of brothers in the schools that's all into to presenting the chronological world history. And I'm not going to say that has nothing to do with us, because it's the Most High said the world was made for Israel. But the Most High didn't give us that, because guess what? We put all the emphasis on that and wouldn't be growing spiritually. We put all the emphasis on that and wouldn't learn how to serve. We put all the emphasis on knowing shit and wouldn't know how to get along and humble down to one another. You know what I'm saying, Art?
God.
All right, brothers. Let me look at this calendar, man. See when is the next time we're going to be rapping. Wait. This is May. So the last, let me do this. The last Friday, let's see what day is Friday. The last Friday in June is the 24th. So I will see y'all, brothers, on June 24th. All right? You have the camera raised up, my one?
Oh, no, I'm good.
Okay, cool.
The water.
I am the bar, brothers. Thank y'all, man.
Water.
God.
Y'all keep on fighting now, and stay focused, and Christ is coming soon. You gotta know that.
God.
Esau got everybody asleep simply just by not letting them know where we stand in the scope of prophecies out. So I will see y'all next month. All right, shalom, brothers. Shalom. I'll see you tomorrow.
Shalom. See you tomorrow. Shalom.
with more rights.
The point that I actually wanted to do.
Oh, you actually highlighted it.
Yeah, appreciate that. So you hit the one point that I wanted you to get now. Number 8. Alright, bro.
I already know.